Malthouse has been taken down to the back line.
Well, to throw at the recruiting people, it goes back to year zero.
It's a beautiful...
It is 12:30 in the morning on the 4th of September, 2025, and Mick Malthouse is 72 years old with a 10-inch exercise bar in his hand, standing between three masked intruders and his sleeping wife. He had heard a pinging noise. He got up, found them, three men with a crowbar on the landing outside his East Melbourne unit. And what Malthouse did next, cracking one with the bar, chasing the others to the basement garage, trapping them there, ordering them into a corner, was exactly what anyone who had ever followed his career might have predicted. He did not back down. He never did. But who is this man really? And what does it tell you that nearly everything he touched across 5 decades of Australian football ended in triumph, controversy, or both at once? To understand Mick Malthouse, you have to go back. He was born in Ballarat in August 1953 and played 174 VFL games as a solid backman for St Kilda and Richmond. Not a superstar, a competitor. He won a premiership medal with Richmond in 1980, then lost his spot in the 1982 grand final after a dislocated shoulder failed a fitness test and had to watch from the stands while his teammates lifted the cup. That exclusion sharpened something in him, because when Malthouse became a coach, he was never content to just be close. His first senior role came at Footscray in 1984. 6 seasons building a side that was tough and demanding. He expected a great deal from every player on his list, and they either rose to what he required or found it impossible to meet. In 1990, he moved to West Coast, inheriting a young club from a young city, and immediately set about turning them into something the competition had to take seriously. By 1991, they were in the grand final. They lost to Hawthorn, but Malthouse did not panic. He refined. In 1992, West Coast won their first premiership. In 1994, they did it again, and Malthouse collected his second Jock McHale medal. For the entire decade at the Eagles, his side played finals every single season, 243 games, never missing September football. That is not luck. That is a system. By the time Collingwood came calling after the 1999 wooden spoon, Malthouse had already built something remarkable. But Eddie Maguire and the Magpies were offering him a restoration project, a storied club brought to ruin, and he took it. Over 12 seasons, Collingwood appeared in 8 final series under him. 8. And on the 2nd of October 2010, after one of the most dramatic grand final finishes in the game's history, a draw the week before against St Kilda. Then a replay that Collingwood won by 56 points. Mick Malthouse had delivered a third VFL AFL premiership, his third Jock McHale medal, 3 times the best in the game. That 2010 side was one of the youngest premiership teams in recent memory, an average age somewhere around 24 years. Malthouse knew exactly what that meant. He said later publicly and more than once that he had left Collingwood on the verge of a mini dynasty. But by the time they lifted that cup, he already knew he would not be there to see it through. In July 2009, over a year before the flag, Collingwood president Eddie Maguire had announced the succession plan. Nathan Buckley, the club's greatest captain, would take over as senior coach after the 2011 season. Malthouse would move to a director of coaching role. It was presented as the best of both worlds. Retain Malthouse's experience, lock in Buckley's future before rival clubs made their move. Rational, structured, settled. Or was it? Because Malthouse won the flag in 2010 and took the side to another grand final in 2011, losing to Geelong by 38 points in his last game as Collingwood coach. And then he left the club entirely. No director of coaching role, no ongoing involvement, just gone. When asked directly whether the succession plan amounted to a sacking, he did not hesitate. Yeah, he said, he always thought that. He explained that Buckley had made clear he did not want Malthouse talking to the coaches during games, which made the director role unworkable. There was no point staying. The relationship fractured publicly in June 2019, when Buckley went on radio and said Malthouse viewed him as an enemy, called him rat cunning and a master manipulator, and said Malthouse would rewrite history. He said he was one of the bodies on the side of the road. Malthouse, inducted into the Australian Football Hall of Fame just days earlier, described Buckley's comments as bewildering. He said the feud had a massive effect on his family, on Nanette, on his daughters, people who had never signed up for any of it. By then, Carlton had already happened. Malthouse was appointed Blues coach in September 2012, with a mandate to revive a historic club. In 2013, with Essendon hit hard by the supplement scandal, Carlton found themselves elevated into finals. They beat Richmond in the elimination final before falling to Sydney in the semi. That was the high point. In 2014, they won 7 games from 22. In 2015, 1 from 8. On the morning of the 26th of May 2015, Malthouse went on SEN radio and said exactly what he thought. Boards crack under pressure, and the coach is always first to go. Hours later, Carlton's board met and sacked him. He had broken Jock McHale's all-time record of 713 games coached earlier that month. Game 715 had come at Carlton against Collingwood, and he finished his career with 718 senior games. More than any coach in the history of the game. But he did not finish the season. He said afterwards that Carlton was the biggest disappointment of his coaching career. Not because of the losses, because of what he found when he arrived. He had expected a club with a long-term football vision, and what he found was a board fixated on a history that no longer applied. He reminded them they had won just one AFL-era flag. One. The heritage meant nothing for the challenge in front of them. In retirement, that directness never faded. He railed against the AFL's relentless rule changes, arguing they had stripped the game of its identity. When the league announced its new wildcard finals format in late 2025, the biggest change to September football in 25 years, Malthouse condemned it as an extension of the game's fixation with American sport. When the AFL issued a memo in 2026 warning clubs against resting players before finals, he called it an infringement, said he was horrified, said he had lost faith in the administrators running the game. Clubs should manage their own players, not the league office. He was equally direct about the score review system when officiating errors attracted public scrutiny, questioning whether the technology was fit for purpose at all. He never learned to soften the edges, and so we come back to the 4th of September, 2025. When the 3 alleged intruders were finally contained in that basement garage, Carroll, Mashu and DiCello, according to court documents, one of them allegedly drove a screwdriver into Malthouse's sternum and said, "That'll teach you, you bastard." Malthouse took the blow. He grabbed the crowbar and struck back. His forearm was cut. His chest was punctured. He kept standing. By July 2026, photos of his injuries had been released through Melbourne Magistrates Court, and he was on the stand giving testimony at committal hearings for the 3 accused men. The story went everywhere. But if you had spent any time following Mick Malthouse, the coach who built West Coast into back-to-back premiers, who gave Collingwood its first flag in 20 years, who refused to walk away quietly at Carlton, who spent decades saying plainly what powerful people would rather he kept to himself, none of it would have surprised you. He stood his ground in every room he ever walked into. A basement in East Melbourne, at 72 years old, was just one more.